How y'all doing, ladies and gentlemen? So we today with the war that changed the English language, mini wars number 3. Shoot, I have a good idea of what it's talking about, and I have a good story to actually share. But before that, as I always say, if you want to check out this video, check out the original video first. Obviously, in OverSimplified, they've put in a lot of good work. They've put in a lot of time and effort to make this. So check out the original video first, and then check out my reaction to it. Now, here is when I first realized, not realized like why it is, but realized what was going on. So back in high school, secondary school, French. I took French. No, we had French and we had Spanish, right? And I feel like it was like, I think year 7, year 8. No, it's year 7 I learned French, year 8 I learned Spanish, and then I could choose one that I would want to progress with, alright? And during French, I realized, wait a second. Why are things not making sense? Why is food not making sense? Beef, cow, pork, pig, veal. Why is it not making sense? And that's kind of when I started to question myself, and that's when I started to read up on this, which I'm assuming is going to be the Battle of Hastings. That's my assumption right now. So yeah, I looked up this like again when I was in secondary school. So that was like when I did French. So that was like, I'm 24 now, probably when I was like 14. So 10 years ago, right? So I know a little bit. I lived with someone that was from France as well, for I think about a year, yeah, 6-7 months, and that's kind of when I like learned a little bit of French as well. The only thing I picked up was ordinateur, computer, and that's really it. Let us see what this video has in store though. First, ladies and gentlemen, the war that changed the English language. Mini wars number 3.
This video was made possible by Skillshare, an online learning community with over 17,000 classes in just about anything you can imagine. Keep watching until the end of the video to learn how you can get your first 2 months for free.
I love the
England
presentation
in
style.
the Middle Ages. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, the children are playing in the village square. What a wonderful time to be alive. Hey, you're dying of dysentery. And also we're being raided by Vikings. What an awful time to be alive. It's the year 900. Europe is a Viking's wet dream. Raids galore. Hey, you want to go raid Paris? Okay. That particular raid didn't go too well, but the King of the Franks said, you guys are pretty...
Ah, man. For those of you guys that have seen Vikings, the TV show, brilliant. Obviously, it stretches... Alright, here's the thing, right? When it comes to, like, history, I always say that, you know, I know a few things. I don't know everything, I know a few things, right? And I know a lot of, like, older stuff. Viking history is one of the things that I know the most about, because I was writing a book that didn't involve Viking history, but, like, involved themes from that era. So like, and then when I read up on all that for the book, I've been writing a book for like the last 5 years, and I write like one chapter every few months. Honestly, it's a trilogy, right? And I kind of I want to release them like once I've actually written all 3. I finished the first one, sort of finished the second one, but I have to like delete and write a new. It doesn't matter. Viking history, I love Viking history. That's all I can say to that. So. This already, I'm a big fan. And when the Viking TV series came out, I was like, oh, I'm a big fan. So you know what? I'm a big fan.
Tough and scary. How about we give you land in northern France, and in return, you protect us from other Vikings? And it was agreed. The Vikings set up the Duchy of Normandy, and then they went full-on French, converting to Christianity, learning the language, and making babies with the locals. England also had its fair share of Viking problems. In the 800s, Danish Vikings had conquered most of the country, but the Anglo-Saxons eventually managed to kick them out, although they left behind a bunch of Viking settlers. Now this guy's king. He sucks. Replace him with his brother. And he was like, hey baby, how you doing? And had a son, and then turned around and was like, hey baby, how you doing? And had another son. And then he died, and no one was sure which son to make king. This one, because he's older. Not if I have anything to do with it. That works for us too. Then he grew up and married the Duke of Normandy's daughter and had a bunch of kids. Remember this one? He's important. Then his advisors came to him and said, hey man, all those Viking settlers that are living here, they might band together and kill you. Well then, why don't we kill them first? And so it was. This pissed off the Danish king, who launched an invasion, and the Vikings conquered England once again. Then the Anglo-Saxons unconquered it, then the Vikings reconquered it.
Yeah.
The king's family had to go into exile, including Edward. Remember him? He went to Normandy where he lived for 30 years. He and his brother Alfred tried to return to England to retake the throne from the Vikings, but they were betrayed by the Earl of Wessex, who said, "Hey friend, I'll take you to London where all the nobles are waiting to make you king. Oh no, look out, red hot poker in the eyes. I can't see." And thus you can't be king. Edward then escaped back to Normandy. After a few more Viking kings came and went, one finally died without an heir, and Edward was called back to England where he became king. And that's where our story begins.
Alright. Well then. Let's move.
Here's the thing about becoming
Hastings,
a king
yeah.
in the Middle Ages. Often your entire country won't support you at first. You can be vulnerable to rebellions, and it's up to you to take control.
But when you win-
Fortunately for Edward, there was already a super powerful guy who had a lot of control over England, and if Edward could get his support, then England would be his. Who is this guy? Oh, piss, it's the guy who gave my brother the red hot poker in the eyes. After an awkward moment where Edward exiled Godwin from the country, he eventually had to give in and let him keep his earldom, possibly after Godwin gave him a bunch of gold and said he was very, very sorry. King Edward also married Godwin's daughter. Then Godwin died, and his massive fortune was passed down to his sons, who all became earls. In particular, this one became the new Earl of Wessex. Harold Godwinson was now King Edward's brother-in-law. He was a close advisor to the king, a brave warrior who had proven himself in battle against the Welsh.
Can I just say, the hair looks absolutely fabulous. Off topic, I know, but the hair looks absolutely fabulous.
And in many ways he was almost like a co-king. Uh-oh, Edward got old and he's on his deathbed. Possibly for religious reasons, or maybe because he wasn't happy about having to marry her, he didn't boink his wife, and as a result has no kids, meaning there's no obvious heir to the throne, meaning I'm gonna be king. He does have a grandnephew, it could be him.
Oopsie.
No, let's go with me. Just one problem. I mentioned that Edward's mother was a Norman. Edward grew up in Normandy, and he had a lot of Norman friends. The current Duke of Normandy was William the Bastard. Why was he called the Bastard? One day his father was sneaking out of his castle when his advisors said, "Where are you going?" To the tanner's shop? Why? To get a tan. But that was a lie. Firstly, because tanners give you leather, not tans, and secondly, because he was really going to see the tanner's daughter. One thing leads to another, and out comes baby William, born out of wedlock. Thus, an absolute bastard. His father died when William was 7 or 8, and he became the new Duke. He spent most of his childhood narrowly avoiding assassination, which probably turned him into the big balls tough guy he's remembered as today. In 1051, the town of Alençon tried to rebel against him, and the townspeople beat on dead animal skins as an insult to his commoner mother.
There is not much I can really add to this story, honestly, because I don't know. A lot of this is very much known, I want to say. There hasn't been anything I can really give an input to. So we're just going to let it go.
William was furious, and he responded by, well, let's just say it wasn't pretty. That's the kind of guy we're dealing with here. William and Edward were good friends, and Edward allegedly promised that William could have the English throne after him. A decade later, Harold Godwinson even visited William and pledged an oath to him over holy relics, promising that William could be the next king of England. Although it's possible Harold only did it because William was holding his family hostage. So when William heard that the king was on his deathbed, he said, "Hooray, I'm gonna be king." So now you have two extremely powerful men who both think they're about to become the next king. But wait. This guy is the King of Norway. He spent most of his life as a warrior for hire, fighting for whoever would give him the most gold. You name a place, he probably fought a war there. Poland?
Pirates.
Yep. Estonia? Yep. Against pirates in the Mediterranean? Yep. The Holy Lands? Sicily? And Bulgaria? Yep. He got crazy rich off the back of it and was swimming in gold. Then he returned home and became king. One of the previous Norwegian kings had made an agreement with one of England's Viking kings, saying that when that Viking king died, the King of Norway would get the English throne. Hardrada felt that because of this agreement, he was now entitled to the English throne. He was also eager to go on one last big conquest that would turn him into a legend. So when he got word that Edward was on his deathbed, he thought, I'm going to invade England, and then I'm going to be king. So now we have three extremely powerful men who all think they're about to become the next king of England, and that means somebody's probably about to get hurt. Back in England, Harold Godwinson is watching over the dying King Edward. Suddenly, he comes out with a shocking announcement. Hey, everyone, gather in. That's it. Come closer.
The king has been the king.
Okay, so I've got bad news. The king is dead. I know, very sad. But good news. He said that I should be the next king. So, hooray for me.
Yay.
And, oh yeah, he said that if he once told anyone else they could be king, that he doesn't like them anymore, and they should just stay in Normandy. And also he said that no one should ask any further questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good talk. Go go do whatever it is you do.
The typical thing, basically.
Usually it took months of preparation to crown a new king, but Harold rushed it and he had himself crowned the same day King Edward was buried. In Normandy, William's advisors came to him and said, "Hey Big Willie, bad news, Harold Godwinson has taken the English throne."
What?
And William was furious, so he sent an envoy to Harold who said, "William says you stole the throne and demands you immediately return it to him." Let me think about that. No. He said no. That
How
bastard.
corrupt.
Wait, I thought you were the bastard. Dude. William immediately began gathering his armies together and preparing for an invasion of England. Now, killing a king was generally frowned upon in old-timey Europe because they were considered to have been chosen
Holy
by
man.
God himself. So back in Normandy, William had to get God on his side. He needed the Pope's blessing for his conquest. So he went to the Pope and said, "Godwinson made an oath to me over holy relics,
Yep.
and then he usurped the throne. Can I kill him?" Sure, why not?
Just make me
So the
powerful.
Pope gave William his blessing, meaning William now had God on his side. Everything was ready to go. Just one problem. The wind. It was blowing the wrong way, and William had to wait with his army in Normandy, while Godwinson waited with his army in the south of England. They waited, and waited, and waited, and then William said screw it and sailed for England and got shipwrecked because the wind was blowing the wrong way.
For anyone that lives in England, like me, the weather is terrible. Terrible. And I don't even live in the south of England, near the sea. The weather is terrible. I live in the northwest. The weather is terrible.
So then he decided to keep on waiting. They waited for 2 months and the wind never changed. Eventually Godwinson got bored and also ran out of food for his soldiers, so he sent them all home and he returned to London. The south coast was undefended and all William could do was keep waiting. While the northerly wind kept William in Normandy, it was carrying Hardrada and his Viking army to England. Hardrada landed near the old Viking city of York and defeated a regional army led by the northern earls, and York surrendered. When Godwinson heard about this, he must have been pretty upset. He had just disbanded his army, and now he had to gather them all together again and march all the way north. He made the exhausting journey in just 4 days, which is crazy quick, and he caught the Vikings off guard and unprepared for battle.
Stamford
The two
Bridge,
armies stood on either side of the River Derwent. Legend
stadium.
says that a berserker Viking single-handedly held the only bridge crossing the river, dodging arrows and fending off attackers, until some English soldiers got under the bridge in a barrel and gave him the old spear in the jewels. This gave the Vikings enough time to form a shield wall, but because they'd been caught off guard, many weren't wearing their chainmail and armor, and the English eventually defeated them, killing Hardrada, and with him, bringing the Viking era in England to an end.
The wind is good. Now it's good.
Finally,
Now we strike.
William's fleet of over 700 ships and 14,000 men set sail and landed on the English coast at Pevensey and set up camp near Hastings. And Harold was still all the way in York. His exhausted army had to march all the way south just days after their battle with the Vikings. Harold made it to London and considered just staying there and waiting for William to come to him. But William forced Harold's hand by burning down a bunch of villages. Harold's army set out and met William's on the 14th of October, 1066, and both sides prepared themselves for the Battle of Hastings. The English were on a hill, so they decided to stay there because it was a good defensive position. The Normans approached, and the two sides probably spent a while yelling at each other. William and the Normans had a few tactical advantages over the English. The first were the archers. The Normans sent volley after volley of arrows at the English, who formed a shield wall in defense. Then William sent his infantry up the hill. The English threw anything they had at them, and the Normans couldn't break through the shield wall. Then the Normans' next tactical advantage came.
These videos are always just a joy to watch, right? It's so difficult and so rare to like have a history channel that is also entertaining, right? Because a lot of like history things are very much just like, oh, here is what happened, and this is the outcome. But this one is just entertaining. I was just sitting here just being like truly, thoroughly entertained.
Came into play. William sent his cavalry up the hill, but even they struggled to break through the shield wall defenses. Wave after wave of infantry and cavalry came, and Harold knew all he had to do was let the Normans exhaust themselves and he would win. But then something a bit strange happened. It's possible the Normans incorrectly believed William had been killed. Maybe they lost their will to fight against the shield wall, or maybe it was an intentional deception tactic. But suddenly, the Norman forces turned and ran away from the English. Believing they had won, the English broke their shield wall and chased down the retreating Normans, who then turned around, encircled the English troops, and cut them down. In the chaotic fighting that followed, Harold Godwinson was killed, the most popular theory being that he took an arrow in the eye. The English were defeated, and William had won. He was no more just a bastard. Now, he was a conqueror. At first, the English nobles were reluctant to make him king, but William burned down a few more villages, and the nobles eventually gave in and offered him the crown. As he was coronated, the local villagers in Westminster let out a cheer of support, but William thought it was a riot, so he burned down the village. William then had to go on a long and costly campaign of quelling rebellions and burning down villages all over England to force the people into submission.
And then the class divide happened. Where more expensive things, or things that were seen as more important, more valuable, took a French name, and things that were cheaper took an English name.
England went through a massive transformation under its new Norman rule. English nobles were replaced with Normans. They built castles and grand cathedrals, but one of the most interesting changes occurred within the English language.
Yep.
The Normans brought their dialect of French to England, and it merged with Old English in ways we still live with today. First of all, the Normans were obviously the ones in power, so words related to power like government, judge, castle, and crown come from the Normans. Words that are considered posher or more refined are usually the Norman ones. At
Yep.
first, the Anglo-Saxons probably weren't that friendly to the Normans, while the Normans likely weren't that amiable towards the Anglo-Saxons. An Anglo-Saxon might come into a room, but a Norman would enter into a chamber. An Anglo-Saxon might buy themselves a shirt, while a Norman would purchase a blouse. And while that filthy peasant's new shirt may be fair, the Norman blouse is absolutely beautiful. The Normans actually considered some Anglo-Saxon words so crude that I can't even say them on YouTube. But there's more. Ask an Anglo-Saxon what job he does, and he might respond with some low-level trade, such as a baker, a miller, or a shoemaker. But a Norman has a skilled trade, like a painter, a tailor, or a merchant. The Anglo-Saxon farmers working in the fields owned many cows, pigs, and sheep, but once they were served
Yep.
up in a Norman banquet, they became beef, pork, and mutton. And written English changed too. Since many Anglo-Saxons couldn't write, the written language was romanticized. Your annoying friend that says cool whip might just be speaking an old English dialect,
No.
as the Anglo-Saxons originally wrote it when, where, and what, but the Normans swapped the W and H around, and the long English A vowel sounded more like an O to the Normans, so you can thank them that you live in a home, not a ham.
Yes. This is where it all came back for me when I first started learning French in school. I was like, food doesn't make sense. Food doesn't make sense. And I remember, like, my teacher back then said something. I can't remember what it was. Maybe, like, we learned food in the class, and I was like, why does that seem very familiar with the English one, but not quite the same? I need to research it, and that's basically why I knew about the Battle of Hastings. It's a weird one. Let me let it finish.
Hey, fun fact about William, the man couldn't read or write, not in French, not in English, not in anything. Well, what if I told you there was a place where you could learn French, English, even Japanese if you wanted? And not just that, pick up a musical instrument, learn to code games and apps, animation, photography and film, anything you could dream of.
Aye.
All taught by genuine experts, and you can get your first 2 months for free. I'm talking about Skillshare.
Wow.
With over 17,000 classes in the arts, business, technology, and more. I get a lot of comments asking how I create these videos.
Alright, alright, as I was saying, right, when it comes to the English language, obviously there's a lot of, it takes a lot of inspirations, right, it truly takes a lot of inspirations. Now, obviously there is a class divide as well, which is obviously, we learned in this video that, a lot of more prestigious, or things that are seen as more prestigious, have not a Norman inspiration, but rather an Anglo-Saxon inspiration. But obviously there are multiple things that have affected the English language. Does that mean that the English language won't change? Yeah, in about 200 years we'll probably use words that will be common in 200 years that are not as common nowadays. For example, a typical word I think that a lot of people use at the moment, or have used in like the last 5 to 10 years, and that's kind of, I think it actually in like the dictionary has actually become an actual word, is the word Google. Like actually looking something up on the internet, Googling is an actual word right now. If you had said that 20 years ago, people would have said, what does that mean? What does Googling mean? Or I'm gonna Uber I'm gonna get myself an Uber. It's like, what do you mean by that? In 10 years time that may become standard, so words change all the time. Words change all the time. There's plenty of words that have lost their meaning, or have their meaning changed in like the last couple of years, and it's going to continue to do so. Language is going to continue to evolve, slower, faster than some may realize. A lot of people won't even realize that language has changed, which is why if you talk to someone that's like 60, 70, 80, they may say something that sounds absolutely insulting, but like they don't mean it, because words can take new meanings. And I'm just looking forward to seeing like in 50 years time, looking back on like videos from now and just thinking like, what were we thinking back then? So I'm looking forward to that. I'll be totally honest. I'm very much looking forward to that. As technology changes, language changes too. And that's just the way it is. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, the Battle of Hastings, the war that changed the English language. Mini wars number 3. I was trying to think of like how to do a hashtag. Number 3. I won't say I'm going to record a bunch of videos today, because I said that last time and I didn't, and then it's been like a month since my last video. What I will say is that I am going to I won't be uploading this specific video until I've got at least a few videos pre-recorded. Now it doesn't mean it's just all the oversimplified videos, but just a few videos recorded in general. Now also, first of all, let me know what you want me to watch next. Granted, by the time this comes out, I'll have a few videos recorded already. But let me know what you want me to record next. Leave all your suggestions in the description down below. And as well, be sure to rate, comment, favorite, and subscribe. And as always, people, until next time, peace out, have a nice day, and bye.